And, I've already talked to people within the league who don't have anything close to a first-round grade on the guy.
What is up, world? Welcome back, Charge the Game podcast. And apparently, Sheduer Sanders is not a first-round talent. Let's get into Jason Whitlock's take, guys. Make sure you get in here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, thumbs up, like the video. Let's go. Colorado star Sheduer Sanders is not even close to a first-round pick to some scouts, NFL Insider reveals. It says here, guys, that Sheduer Sanders is expected by many people to be the #1 overall pick in spring's NFL draft, but according to an insider, not all 32 teams view him as that sort of franchise talent. I'm just going to ask you guys right away, do you think that Sheduer Sanders is a #1 overall talent, or at least a top 10 draft pick? Like, what do you guys think? I mean, I think that this is not the strongest QB class, but I think that Shedeur has shown enough to at least be a mid-round pick. Like, I just got to be honest. I don't see generational, and we saw how things look with a generational talent like Caleb Williams, and you see the season that he's having with the Chicago Bears, and no one in their right mind thinks that Sheduer Sanders is on the same level as a Caleb Williams. So you got to let that sink in before you really, make a decision on what you guys think his positioning in the draft should be. It says here, Sanders is in play to be drafted at or near the top of the draft following a collegiate career that saw him toss 14,119 yards and 132 touchdowns between JSU in Colorado. But according to NFL's Network's Tom Pelissero, there are some within the league who don't have anything close to a first-round grade on the quarterback. Now let's get into what Jason Whitlock had to say about this.
I'm saying that a lot of teams don't have a first-round grade on Shedeur.
Sheduer Sanders, for a variety of reasons, is going to be a really fascinating overall evaluation. And, I've already talked to people within the league who don't have anything close to a first-round grade on the guy. He certainly has fans. He certainly comes in with high profile, but this idea that, I think what did Shedeur do? Didn't he walk into the bowl game wearing a Giants outfit or something like that? The idea that he's just going to walk in and be the #1 pick, that's probably pushing it. I'd probably, and I'm not setting odds on this, Rich, of course, because I would not do that on your show. But, if I were guessing who comes off the board first, I'd say Shedeur is not the first Colorado player off the board as it stands today. Travis Hunter may be a generational type of player. Somebody may well fall in love with Sheduer Sanders. He could go #1 overall. I would just say in my conversations, there is healthy skepticism among people in the league that when it comes to the end of this process and we get to that last week of April, that somebody's going to jump out there and use a really high pick on making him a franchise QB.
Now, before we continue, guys, I've seen reports where Sheduer Sanders' name is tied to the Cleveland Browns. Him and his father, Deion Sanders, for some reason, feel like they can dictate where he's going to go. Now, I know a lot of people like to bring up the Eli Manning situation. I have to say, man, in my humble opinion, times were a little different, okay? Sheduer Sanders should go to whatever team is willing to give him a chance. Caleb Williams tried to do the same thing. Caleb Williams is better than you, Sheduer Sanders. He went to the Chicago Bears. I tell you this, I'd rather be in Chicago than Cleveland, though. But hey, you never know, man. You may be the one player that can change that Browns organization around. We know that it's not ran the best. Now, as far as people being offended that Sheduer Sanders may not go #1, let's just be honest, man. Travis Hunter just may be taken before him, right? There are quarterbacks that fit other schemes that aren't Sheduer Sanders that possibly could ball out better. And you got to understand that from the collegiate level to the pros, it is drastically different. And I don't think that Deion Sanders should be involved with any of this because you just don't want any teams to have to deal with that. Deion Sanders should stick to being a head coach, and he should let his son enter the draft like a grown-ass man and be selected to go wherever he's selected to go.
I think the fact that Shedeur may go in the lower half of the first round, or maybe not in the first round at all, explains why Shedeur, Deion, and Travis are going to do the NFL draft in Colorado, not at the big NFL draft party. Your thoughts?
From a pure football standpoint, I've said this and I've talked to people that know more than I do, like Coach JB. There are some things about Sheduer Sanders that concern people that watch this stuff and really understand the game. And number one is his ability or unwillingness to get rid of the ball on time within structure of a...
Now, that is something that I have noticed the last 2 seasons with Sheduer Sanders. I do feel like he does make outstanding plays, but let's be honest, you're not going to be able to hold on to that ball like that in the pros where everybody is a freak of nature. Everybody's an all-American. These guys 300, 400 pounds moves just as fast as you. It's a different animal, man, when guys have to do what they have to do to put food on the table for their families. And that's something that Caleb Williams is learning the hard way. You can't do what you did at USC and think that it's going to transition, because these are pros. They're professional for a reason. They're trained to stop you just like you're trained to score on them. And that's something that is going to have to be coached out of Sheduer Sanders no matter what team he goes to, because nobody's going to sit back there unless you have an outstanding O-line. I mean, an outstanding one, which if you are going high to mid round, you're not going to go to the best team. I just don't see that happening. Now, I'm seeing things about the Titans and the Cleveland Browns, and whether Deion Sanders likes this or not, whether Sheduer Sanders think that he's too cool, I don't like the fact that he's rocking the New York Giants paraphernalia, because maybe that's where his brand is good at. I understand that he does have a huge fan base, but I don't think any player should be able to select their team, because guess what? It's going to set the tone for the future players coming behind them to do the same thing.
Look, the game has changed a lot, but there's a basic principle of playing quarterback at that level. You have to consistently get rid of that ball in right around 2.5 seconds. When that back foot hits and you drop, you have to make a quick decision. And unless you have that unbelievable feel or athleticism, like a Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson, I think Caleb Williams learned a lot. This was not the Pac-12, and you saw what happened to him. He got engulfed by defenders who are better athletes than he is. I think that there's a significant risk, in my view, of taking Shedeur in the first 5 to 10 picks of this draft.
Now, I'm going to ask you guys, what do you guys think? Do you think that Sheduer Sanders, like I said, he said 5 to 10 picks, he thinks that it's a risk. Do you guys think that Sheduer Sanders is a first 5 to 10 quarterback? But you have to also look at the QB class in the need of teams that need a solid, fundamentally sounded quarterback coming out of the collegiate level. Hey, he's been training with Tom Brady. He definitely has improved, but things do change at the next level. And you heard him say the same thing, echo the same thing I just said with Caleb Williams. It gets ugly sometimes before it gets pretty. Not everyone is a Jaden Daniels. Obviously, this kid is balling. CJ Stroud balled his first year. But once you get a little bit, I mean just a little bit of game tape on a person, it's over with. Especially if you can't coach out the things that are on the tape and allow you to adjust or audible out of certain playing styles to do what's best for the team.
I think that's what's going to end up being the conversation. And then there'll be accusations of racism or the people that hate Deion. But I think Deion is part of the risk factor here.
Yeah.
Every NFL team, regardless of who the family is, regardless of who the quarterback is, they end up dealing with the family.
Notice that Caleb Williams' dad is on ice now because he was trying to dictate where his son was going to go. And the NFL had to politely step in and say, this isn't USC. We don't need to hear from you. We're going to run our organization the way that we want to run it. Deion Sanders should be worried about coaching the next few seasons at the Colorado Buffaloes and stick to that.
And to have a quarterback who has a Hall of Fame, one of the 10, 15 greatest football players of all time, second guessing you, is like, I don't know if I want to sign up for that. Deion wants to take little pot shots and criticize from the peanut gallery. I don't know if I want to deal with that.
And I agree, Jason Whitlock. Kudos to what Deion Sanders is doing. Kudos to what Sheduer Sanders and Travis Hunter was able to get done. But I certainly hope that they don't try to pull the race card. I mean, how ignorant would that sound?
Jason, they always bring up the Manning family with Eli, how they didn't want him to go specifically to San Diego. They engineered that trade to the New York Giants. I get it. But this is where the comparison stops. This is what you talk about. Archie Manning was notoriously quiet. He stood out of the way as much as possible. He would do the interview once in a while. He would be a basis of a documentary, and that's about it. But he never actually said stuff like, well, I got to see who's running the franchise. Once he got him to the Giants, for the most part, Archie Manning stayed out of it.
You got to look at the politics of it, and you also got to look at the optics. Deion Sanders is outspoken, big mouth, cocky. Shedeur Sanders, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Archie Manning was more quiet. If you look at Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, you're just now starting to see their sense of humor post-retirement, right? They pretty much took on the identity of their dad their whole career. I've never seen Eli Manning actually talk or crack jokes until this podcast that they have, and they are hilarious together. I will admit that. But a lot of teams off the rip, just like a lot of college teams and a lot of college coaches didn't like Deion or his son, it's probably going to be the same in the NFL, at least when it comes to Deion Sanders. So what Steve Kim is saying here is we can't keep using that as an example, because they're going to jump ahead of this and start saying stuff like this. Well, you guys let Eli Manning do it. Oh, because he's white. No, you guys got to look at the optics. And I know coming from a brother, you probably don't want to hear that, but that's just the truth.
So let's say now that the head coach brings in a coordinator that's not Coach Prime approved. Now you got this. Well, why are you running this? Why are you running that? Then they bring in a quarterback coach. Okay, well, what's his background? What's his track record? I'm not so sure I want my son to be learning quarterback play at this level for him. Then every year of the draft, you don't get the specific offensive lineman or the number one receiver.
Once he entered the pros, right, he's his own man. He's going to have to suck it up. He's not going through anything that any other quarterback hasn't gone through. He's going to have to show up, show out, and elevate others around him, period. Right? Regardless of what team he goes to, he's going to have to show that he's a pro. And honestly, Deion Sanders, from how you talk, you should want it that way. You should want your son to go someplace where he can make an impact like Joe Burrow did with the Bengals. Now, we know that Shedeur Sanders is not on that level, but anything is possible with a little bit of work, humbleness, and nonstop commitment to your craft. So you guys let me know what y'all think about Shedeur Sanders not having a first round grade. What team do you guys think that he's going to end up playing for? Let me know in the comment section, guys. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Yeah.